Policy 122.
If you remember from the late November Finance Administration Committee meeting, I think it was, or early December, I said there's three particular council policies that we need to look at, and one of them had to do with sort of like web resources and the posting of information on websites. As the discussion about transportation utility fee sort of heated up on our website, and then there were people or avatars, people that aren't really people, that started, posting comments. And then the comments got rather heated, and then some comments got removed and then reposted. And it became obvious that some of the comments weren't related to the topic. They were really more personal, and they really weren't topical. They were really aimed at people. And this actually got brought up, and I forget the gentleman's name, but he lives in Countryside. He called me, and I think it was actually at the meeting. And he said, I know Facebook has a policy, and according to the Facebook policy, you have to be a real person. You can't pretend to be someone else. But Facebook really doesn't police that. And, his suggestion was we really need to put something in place that describes, especially in the social networking, what's allowed and what's not allowed. And so what we did is we went back to our council policy about web resources. We cleaned it up to reflect the people that are posting information to it. Posts usually come from three sources: Martha, agendas and minutes; Martin, typically projects, neighborhood services, anything related to rental inspections, or Morrison Ridge chili dinner, or things like that. Parks and recreation, in terms of things that Easter egg hunts, things that are happening at the community center, or it's really hot outside and the community center's being used as a place for people to cool off. And so what we tried to do is get it to reflect what is currently happening in terms of people that are responsible to post and have the ability to things that are on. We cleaned up number 3, and this became, I think, more of an issue as we looked at sort of like some of these space. Somebody's going to have to make the declaration that something's not topical. And instead of putting an employee or a department head in a position, basically said put the city administrator in the position. It talks about how city council members can contact, and instead of having city council members contact saying, what's on Facebook, I don't think is appropriate, instead of putting that department head in the middle, the person that needs to be put in the middle is me. And so that's why I took it out. That's why I said, needs to be a discussion with me and a council member or mayor about whether something fits our internet policy. And my construction's going to be fairly liberal, in that as long as there's discussion that's germane to the topic, we're going to leave it up there. It's when the personal attacks, and in particular as the Countryside gentleman pointed out to me, this set of discussions has nothing to do with the transportation utilities. It just has a lot to do with people trying to be eating with each other. And he said it's not appropriate, especially when people are pretending to be other people, and you can't hold them responsible. And for those that were frequent Facebook readers, I think the issue was Miss Mona, and I forget the other.
Rhoda Stewart.
Yeah, that was out there making posts and comments. So that's what this policy is about. There's a separate sort of what I would call the social media internet posting policy, which sort of says, here are 9 things we know don't belong. With the bottom section being what we will use as our posting on Facebook. Comments posted to this page will be monitored. The city of Mission reserves the right to remove inappropriate comments, basically summarizing those 9 that are in the body of this internet posting policy. None of these are, other cities use the same one, other businesses use the same one, so this isn't original.
I appreciate the fact that everything is vetted through one entity and we don't have to go to 3 or 4 people. It
Right.
makes no sense.
Correct.
So your judgment on the post, along with the council from the mayor, will be final?
Mm-hmm. pretty easy to go to find out who took it off.
Right, right. And, you know, my only concern, and I'm sure it's fine as is, and my guess is you don't even need one hand to use this policy, in my opinion. My only concern is, I mean, I have no concern about your reasonableness, but, you know, this policy stays in place, and we find ourselves with a city administrator that, you know, isn't as balanced.
Well, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And leaving it, you know, the sole discretion on what's posted on the city website, to one person or to one office more specifically. I don't know, I don't see as ideal.
What are the other options though?
Well, I mean, it seems to me that if, you know, I mean, then it gets into this, where does it stop? Because, if, you know, people don't like the decision of the city administrator and mayor, then there's some kind of appeal, I guess. And who do you appeal to?
And then are you going to vote every time that there's something controversial
Right,
on,
right.
what, you know, on a Facebook site? So you have to use reason. And,
Sure.
and my guess is it is used a handful of times, and it would be a handful of times over decades. Most of the people that post are trying to share their opinion. The only time that it sort of gets carried away is if somebody becomes sort of inflammatory. And then the problem is, it's like third grade boys. You know, one punches one in the shoulder and the other punches the other shoulder, and they throw their milk at each other. And before you know, you have a post that's this long and nobody's talking about what they started talking about.
Well, and the internet posting policy helps too. So Bill, you have a comment?
Well, I see the Facebook for the city being more as an informational vehicle in order to get out information, you know, street closed because of gas break, or,
Right.
you know, or Easter egg hunt, you know,
Yeah.
happening or whatever. And basically, you know, being a billboard of the city, I don't even see a need to have postings from people coming in at all. I mean, if we're just utilizing it as an informational,
All the posts come from
Billboard,
outside of the
then-
city,
then-
so they go to your wall and they start making comments, and then people start commenting on the...
well, we just don't accept comments.
Social media is the biggest winding pathway we have for the future. We're not getting rid of that.
There's other blogs and places for people to post their opinions and things like that. I'm just throwing it out as an idea, that, you know, it's just, here's the information of the day or the week and the events that are coming up, rather than, you know, having to type in our email address and hunt through the different places there.
No, I understand the point. I thought it was interesting to learn that more people get their information from our Facebook page than they do our website. And I agree with you about the billboard, but the problem is, you know, to use the analogy, if the billboard's in the basement and nobody ever sees it, and there are a lot of great mediums out there to, you know, disseminate information to the masses, but if the masses aren't plugged into it or know how to get to it or find it, that becomes the part that's problematic. So I think part,
You know, the city be the only one to post things on there, you know, receive feedback from.
But we already do that on our website. And I don't think there's a lot of it.
Well, no,
Well, as you said, that, you know, we get more people that get information about the city from Facebook, and we just use that as our billboard.
The real power of Facebook is to allow people to share their thoughts and opinions, and that's what really promulgates the people using Facebook. When people come to events and they'll post, I think Bill's even posted pictures of events when he's been at a city event on Facebook, maybe once or twice.
And I think we need to look at it in a positive manner, because there's been a lot of positive things that I've seen on there.
Yeah. And sometimes you
Even
get some...
Bill's stuff is positive.
And sometimes you get some really good feedback in terms of somebody will post like, yeah, but did you see that you've like missed this, you know, the cut through on Shawnee Mission Parkway? Has anybody been to the cut through on Shawnee Mission Parkway? And it's posted there, and all of a sudden you go, oh, yeah. I bet KDOT's been back to you 3 times and now they've mounted this known for this number. And so what happens is it becomes a place where people want to comment. And I think the other problem that you have is that of all the people that are out on Facebook that should really open themselves to conversation, we're probably one of the groups that should. I mean, we're a local government. We represent a constituency of residents and businesses. And I think it's easier for some people to comment on Facebook than to actually be able to come to a meeting.
Another example that I can think of is somebody said something about the trash pickup.
Right, on Wednesday.
And I remember, the city responded on Monday, this is who you need to call, and, we'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Where they probably, either would or couldn't do that, during the
Right.
weekday.
And so, I really like, for the city administrator, Will's idea works a lot better for me because I don't have to think about it as nearly as much. If you're just posting and nobody else is out there commenting. But at the same time, as I look at what the next generation of people that are living in the communities and coming to our organizations are going to expect, that's going to be the medium that they use to share ideas, and they're already doing it. And so I'm kind of a fuddy-duddy. If I had my way, I would do it. I get criticized at home that I don't go read my Facebook mail, I don't go to my wall. So I'm sort of trying to embrace it.
Other questions?
I got just a comment. In your comment earlier on, when you were talking, you asked somebody, said, well, who can we complain to? Remember? My stock standard answer to that is come to a council meeting, and when the mayor says at the beginning, is anyone in the audience who is not on the agenda tonight that would like to address the governing body, that's when they need to come forward and speak up. That way they address the whole governing body at once, and we all hear the same thing, instead of one individual who, puts it in one place or the other. I mean, if they feel that strong about it, think they're getting shortchanged, that's for them to do it.
Absolutely. Any other comments? Look for a recommendation.
I'd like to make a recommendation that the revised council policy 122 relating to the city's official website and other web resources, and as well as posting guidelines, be forwarded to city council for approval.
Agree with that?
Yes. Can it go on consent?
Fine by me. It's agreeable with John, Deborah.
For those that don't know, is Elaine Tatham, and I forget what the C is, but Elaine Tatham is a lady who started this company, I want to say 25 or 30 years ago in Olathe, and it's become one of the preeminent survey companies in the United States. They really started out here in the Kansas City metropolitan area doing what they call direction finder surveys. And what the direction finder survey is really a standard set of questions that they ask in every community, and then they benchmark so that you can see, community A really does communications really well, community C might do public works really well. And they share those with the various cities that participate in it, and it allows you to find those people in those communities that do certain things well, and then you're able to sort of tap into, why do your citizens rate your service so well? And you can kind of pick up some best practices. And ICMA have put together a consortium with the National Citizen Survey is what I think they call their group. And their pricing is very similar to this. Their base price I think is about $9,900, and then if you take pieces that are in the ETC and you add it to them, it gets up to a comparable price. So whether it's ETC or the National Survey Group, they're comparable. Those are the two largest survey companies that we have out there, really in local government. I put in their scope of work so you could kind of know what they do and how they do it. There's 3 payments that we make, and we pay them based on the work that they've performed, with their final payment or half of it coming at the very end once they make a presentation. The survey instrument that they create is 7 pages. There's a standard set that they try to get you to ask, but they also allow you to modify. In the last survey that we did, and I made a couple copies, and then Martha will send this to your Kindles, and you can actually read it on your Kindle.
I've seen it, I don't know, it's big.
The 2007.
Yeah, the 2007
I think you've
survey.
sent this, haven't you?
I just sent it to a few minutes ago,
Yeah,
your
the
Kindle.
100-page
Did it show up?
document in there.
It's 100 pages, and it shows you, how the city ranked in certain areas, and it has maps of where the people that we surveyed lived in the community. It's nice in that it gives you a snapshot, and remember, it's a snapshot in time as to what people in your community are thinking. It can be affected by things that are occurring, but there are certain questions, regardless of economic conditions, people will tend to answer truthfully, and those tend to be in how they feel safe in their community, how they view street or sidewalk improvements. I mean, those doesn't seem that economic conditions really affect those answers, because they've been doing this for a while, so you can actually look at spots. The idea is that when they get done, you have a statistically valid survey that has a 95% confidence level, plus or minus 5%, of being what people in general, if you would cast the net even farther, would answer as to what they believe is important in your community. What's nice is we'll have a 2007 that we can benchmark against. And we can take the things that in 2007 residents said we needed to improve in and see if we actually got better or worse. What's I think going to be interesting is that we had the highest rating in terms of effective communications with citizens in 2007. We are the highest in the United States.
Compared to, how many comparisons do we have?
1,200 different cities that they've been, we had the highest rating. My guess is that will be different. Not necessarily that we've changed a lot of the stuff that we're communicating about, it's that we're changing the issues that we're talking about. And when you change the issues that you're talking about, my guess is you're going to see that they goes down. The one that they ranked high, if you remember, was streets and infrastructure as the things that we should focus most of our attention on. And it should be interesting. My guess is it probably goes a little bit higher because we have focused a lot of attention on it. Not necessarily maybe positive in some of the comments that are in the media, but it has been a focus and an interest of, the governing body and the staff.
Mike, one question I had about the survey is, I know that it sets priorities in terms of what's important. For example, the number 2 item in the 2007 survey was maintenance of streets. Only second to economic development. What the survey doesn't get out as much is, okay, once we've established these objectives, what's the best way to accomplish them? And then that turns into a whole different conversation.
Right.
Okay.
That is correct.
And I think that's an important point to delineate, because it isn't necessarily setting, what we're going to do or how we're going to spend our money. It's more about prioritizing, at the 30,000-foot level, what are the important what are the important areas that we need to focus in on. And it still comes back to committees and city council and the whole legislative process to figure out, all right, what's the best way to accomplish those objectives.
And then what we've done is we've taken, since the survey has a whole set of questions that basically represent parts of different departments, we had money within some of the contractual services within the departments that we can apply to the survey. And so what you see is that we've taken money across all city departments in order to pay for the survey.
I have a question relative to timing of the survey and why the driver of this is not necessarily the downtown vision committee, is it? They just want a component
Right.
in there.
Yes.
So some of would it be structured comparable to it was in 2007? So we have parks and public works and
Yeah.
police, safety and those types of
In 2007, we had a subset which was asking sustainability questions in terms of what are your views on sustainability, which then, what's interesting, our sustainability section became one that a lot of cities then adopted in terms of what they were looking at. And I would say our sustainability section might be replaced with that downtown visioning committee in terms of, the things that are interesting to them. And that way I can stay within that same price range.
How many total questions?
It's 7 pages, and I want to say there's six questions a page, 42 to 45.
They're in
something
here,
like that.
Dave. if you wanna
Okay.
go.
And we mail out 1,500 in hopes to get 400
Yeah,
back?
12 to 1,300.
12 to 1,300, not 50.
Gotcha.
And the way we did it last time, which is the way that I would recommend that we do it this time, is that we pull voter records and we use the registered voters as the sampling that you pull from in order to mail and to do any follow-up that you have to.
And what is entailed in the phone follow-up?
Sometimes people, I think at the very end, they leave some open comment questions, and sometimes we want to follow up with them, because sometimes they'll say that something, they really wanted to have this question asked, and sometimes it's asked in the form of another question in the survey.
But it's always at the respondent's request
Right.
that we follow up with their contact.
When is this planned on being done?
Well, we would come back in March with the questions. If you see, it says finalize the methodology for administration based on the input from the city, design the survey instrument that is up to 15 minutes in length, 7 pages. I would bring back that set of questions for you to look at to see if these are the right ones. If there's ones you say, I don't think this is important. I think or I don't understand why you're asking it this way.
How many, in 2007, how many were sent out and what was the return?
Does somebody have one of those reports? Because I think someone else is
I
looking.
thought it was like 400 returned.
Yeah, but I think it'll summarize it at the front.
Same.
It says of the 1,500 households that received a survey, 416 completed the survey, exceeding the original goal of 400.
And in what venue are you going to share the questions with us?
Next month, Finance and Administration.
Oh, at committee meeting, okay. My recommendation would be, once we go forward with this, if it's deemed that we do, that when Mike comes back with the individual comments, that we actually have a devoted and defined around these survey questions, because I think there'll be quite a dichotomy between what happened in 2007 and right now, and I think we need either a work session or a retreat to go over some of those to see where we are with the future of this city.
Is it after the survey's done? That'd be good.
I mean, once we have the
Have the-
residents complete the...
Correct.
Oh, right,
All the
right.
results
Well, I'm
of
sorry, I
it.
thought you were talking about having a work session to build the survey.
No,
Oh, gotcha.
afterward, to
Gotcha.
go over,
Okay.
so that, we don't just see tabulated numbers. I'd like to actually see the comments and focus on
Sure.
the actual, comments or concerns
I
that
think-
people raise.
And a follow-up plan.
And a follow-up plan.
I think it'd be time well spent. We certainly have drafted hard off of the 2007 results in terms of some of the big decisions we've made, so I think that'd be time well spent.
And it's truly a planning tool
That's
for
right.
what we do. And if we're not going to use it in that mannerism, then we shouldn't be conducting these. We can't put something out there, say we want your feedback.
Right.
We're going to use this to establish priorities and goals for the future, and then
Maybe
not
we should
do
put a
it.
disclaimer on there, warning, direction may come with policy follow-up or something like that.
Is there any, and I don't know, you'd have to ask ETC, but if we're sending it to registered voters, there are, husband and wife could have two terribly different views on subjects. Is there any way for them to get an additional ballot or questionnaire? I don't know, that's,
So they don't cancel each other out, or to what end?
no, so that, if the wife is filling it out and he doesn't agree with what she's doing, then he can get his own questionnaire
But
to
then
fill it
you
out.
would reduce the statistical validity
Right.
because it wouldn't be random anymore. You would be pairing. If you had residents that were married,
Mhm.
their opinions could be either negated if you have the opposites or enhanced because they both agree.
True.
Which would then tend to lead a bias towards people that are married and probably residential property.
So in the Crane household, Len could get a survey that was directing Len to complete it with his own thoughts and opinions.
Right.
And Debbie might not get one.
Right.
Got it, okay.
Because it's addressed to the actual person
Person.
and not to the resident.
Right.
And the idea of using registered voters versus, I don't even know, resident, well, I don't even know what other.
Well, you could pull county, yeah, you could pull county tax records, but then you lose the apartments.
Right.
So by using registered voters, you pick up people that are in the rental properties.
And then statistically, that would seem to, and I think it's probably a good thing. I mean, you tend to get the folks involved that,
Yeah, I think there's a map that shows, maybe, is that it?
this map,
Yeah.
that doesn't say anything.
It just, well, it.
Oh, in terms of the scatter?
Yeah, because if you look at the scatter, what you find is, this is mostly single-family residential when you look at that map. Because you know that there's apartments that are heavily in here, and if it was based simply on population, this would almost be solid
Got
red.
it.
And so you look through here, it's actually scattered in our single-family residential properties.
So the registered voter homeowners.
Yeah. Single-family residential property owners tend to be enrolled as voters at a higher rate than people that live in apartments.
And just like we talked about social media and networking, to me, that's a perfect network or segue into how this will be changed from 2007. How do we communicate with people? What is their preferred option for communication?
Oh, Facebook really didn't exist in 2007.
Right. So it will be modified quite a bit, I would think,
Yeah.
from 2007.
Mark, what's his name, was suing the twins. Vandelwas. Winklevoss.
What, MySpace?
Yeah, Facebook.
Yeah.
They were the ones that originated the Harvard connection and he stole it.
Right. Other questions about the ETC direction finder survey?
Will we get a chance to get a draft copy of the questions before they go out?
I think there's a
That's
coming
where-
to Finance
So
Administration.
that's
in
right,
March.
okay. But you'll have them completed then?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it sounds like there's still some discussion that can take place once the initial draft comes out. Because I think, Will has made a good point that, and I know these folks are professionals, but there's also certain ways you can ask any question to
Correct.
affect an outcome. So getting additional sets of eyes that are close to the issues would be worthwhile to do.
And when you're getting feedback, I know you'll get feedback from your department staff, but do you also get feedback from the actual staff? Our staff members, our associates?
Yeah, what we do is we'll take it to our department head meeting 2 weeks before, kind of look at the questions that we have, and there are the things that don't look right to us, and then basically disseminate it out, and then they ask at their department
Okay,
mental
good.
staff meetings.
So I want to make sure everybody has some input.
Recommendation?
Yeah, I recommend that the contract with ETC in an amount not to exceed $15,000 allowing city staff to develop a citizen survey through ETC's Direction Finder Survey Program be forwarded to council for approval or consideration.
2 to 1, we'll put it on the discussion items, obviously.
Just before I leave, because you could be getting calls, I think Martha sent out an email to some of you, and then the Lomar, letter of map revision.
Your memo came in my mailbox today.
Okay. Letter of map revisions, we actually have physical maps that we have posted there. We have Fairway, Roland Park, and Mission residents that received the letter. The first page is what the floodplain
Looks like-
was, and then after the improvements, what the floodplain is. And so this is the letter that they get. The letter that they get is the letter, if you read it, there's no way you can figure, you have no clue what that letter really means.
Who wrote the letter?
It's FEMA required. It's written like engineers.
for the residents, by and large, that are receiving this letter, it's great news.
Right, it is.
And that's what's always lost on me. It's, you know, it has no feeling of good news when you read it. I mean, it's painful to read, it's tough to get through.
Right.
At least it was for me, so.
Should I be happy? Should I be sad?
Talking about floodplains.
I'm a little freaking confused.
Yeah.
So this simplifies it. First map is what it was. Second map is what it is. And then it's been submitted to FEMA, and they gave us notification that they received it Monday.
Does this in any way, it's probably two separate things, but I want to ask the question, in any way help our ongoing question to with the city of Fairway, stormwater project?
Not really, because if you go look at that fairway portion, you'll see that that purple portion, both in map 1 and 2 are the same. And that's because you have to make improvements further into fairway in order to make that blue or purple go away.
The one that's hard to read or figure out is improvements, because it's just a black line.
Yes, that's why we colored it, so you can just see the effects of the improvement.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Because
Without
that's,
that,
in the
without
end,
that,
yeah, in the end, what you want to know is that it doesn't flood where it used to.
And as it relates to Fairway, are there any new updates on that as it relates to the city signing the,
That seems to be more political than staff or administrative. I think they have hired, this comes from Kent Lage, who's the head of urban infrastructure for the county and is over the SMAC program. I think he told me they're on their third set of engineers.
and
So-
the first two came back with the same conclusion?
Right.
And the third one, have they developed
Not
something?
yet.
Now, if he disagreed, there'll be a fourth.
We were talking
That's
about
what
Matt
happened.
Wiley.
I'm talking about the engineers down there, over there for
Yeah,
him.
and it's something we're gonna have to work through. I talked with Bill Stotskill, and he goes, any help that I can give you, I understand, he goes, I'm not really invited to the meetings anymore, and I understand that this is more political, and just know that, both the city council and the mayor are trying to get to a conclusion. We're not trying to impede you. This is a lot of
And have we established a drop dead date on when we need the letter signed, Mr. Scanlon?
The first letter was dated April 2010, so we've been working on it quite some time.
Helpful. Any other questions for Mr. Scanlon before he leaves us?
Dave, you have ties to Fairway, can't you go talk to him?
Well, I have offered my services to the mayor, and I think she's taking that under advisement. And
I know Commissioner Peterson has tried to speak with them on our behalf.
And so I know that the mayor has some other thoughts, and so I've offered that to the mayor, and I've told her that I recognize she's leading the parade, but anything that I can do, having sat on that council, I'm more than happy to help. All right, thanks, Mike.